So, Irene, tell me about your background and how did you become a life coach and therapist?
Well, it's not something I ever knew that I was going to do. It's not what I set out to do. And yet it so feels like right for me. And what I mean by that is I always knew all my life that I was going to work with children. I just didn't know they were going to be in grown-up bodies when I did it. I studied, my first degree is in early childhood education. And I've just been someone who has loved children my whole life. I was the kid in the neighborhood that everybody used for a babysitter because I just loved being around little guys. So, and also I grew up in a very dysfunctional family. And I always had so many questions about why people behaved the way they did and what motivated people. I think if anything, how I really see myself is as a teacher. Teaching people to understand themselves, teaching people to care and like themselves. So how did I get here? Well, I had my husband and I, first me, then him, we got into recovery. When we got into recovery, we started to find some paths and some answers to why we behaved the way we did and what had been going on with us throughout our lives. My husband discovered that he was an incest survivor. He did a lot of work around that. He was a minister and had a degree in pastoral counseling. So when he got into doing, he started leading groups around sexual abuse, and at the time I was working in the corporate world, and he asked me if I would help him do some curriculum development for some weekends that he was doing. So I started doing the weekends with him. I started writing the curriculum. I had a lot of training in that. I worked in human resources and organizational development, and I ran a youth agency. So I'd done a lot of work teaching adults. Well, anyway, so I started to write the curriculum for these weekends. And then I ran the weekends with him, helping people to look at their it's called Adult Children of Alcoholics issues. When I did that, people started asking me if I would see them individually, and I was really taken aback. Like, I kept saying, I'm a teacher, I'm a trainer, I don't do that. And they'd say, no, really, I want to talk to you. And so I started seeing people individually. I'd spend half the session telling them, this isn't really what I do. And they would continue to ask me to do it. So I ended up having this practice that was just growing without me even setting out to do that, and I was doing it nights and weekends. And then I had to get to the point where either I had to continue this and let go of my day job, which was in human resources in the corporate world, or stop doing it because I was spread so thin. And so I did, and that was 25 years ago. And then I went and got lots of training and went and got my master's in clinical social work, and here I am doing what I thought I was going to do, work with children. I just didn't know they were going to be in grown-ups. It's the place where we all get hung up. Well, what I mean by that is pretty much everything that we develop as a personality comes from stuff that we created as a kid. The places where we get hung up in our adult relationships, like the places where we lock heads with our partners, where we get disappointed with our kids, our motivation, so much of that comes from our childhood and how our lives as kids landed on us, what we decided to do with that, how we built defense systems, what hurts us. I talk about it in one of the videos about blisters. Our history leaves blisters with us. And unless we know how our childhoods landed on us, we really don't know who we are. That teaches us about our internal life. And that keeps us from having that be, as we learn who we are and how our childhoods landed on us, it keeps us, it gives us freedom to create a future rather than reacting out of a past.